Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about immigration. And the time period we're going to talk about first is prior to 1871, so before. Most immigrants to America came from Northern and Western Europe, including Germany, Great Britain, Ireland, Norway, and Sweden. And the religion of most of these immigrants were Protestant, and they usually lived on farms, and most of these immigrants were skilled workers. A skilled worker just means you've been trained. It would be like if you are someone who knows how to fix up a kitchen, replace things. It's something that takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice. However, after 1871 to 1921, the type of immigrants changes a lot. Most immigrants started to come from Southern and Eastern Europe, including Italy, Greece, Poland, Russia, present-day Hungary, and former Yugoslavia. And many also came from Asia, China and Japan in particular, especially China. And the religion of most of these immigrants were Catholic, Orthodox, or Jewish, and they usually lived in cities, and most of these immigrants were unskilled workers. So as you can tell, there starts to be a difference. Before, they were from Northern and Western Europe. After 1871, they're from Southern and Eastern Europe. Before 1871, they were Protestant, which is a type of Christian. However, after 1871, they're Catholic and Orthodox, which these are both a type of Christians as well, but just a little bit different leaders. So as you can tell, they go from Protestant Christianity to Catholic Christianity or Orthodox Christianity, and there's also Jewish people as well. The immigrants before 1871 lived on farms, but the new immigrants live in cities. And a lot of the new immigrants were unskilled, which means they weren't trained in any particular labor. Think of an unskilled worker today would be someone who is just flipping hamburgers. It's not a skilled job. You don't really have to learn anything. Immigrants came to America seeking freedom and better lives for their families. Same reason why a lot of people come today. They want freedom and better lives. They want jobs, make money. And the impact of immigrants. Immigrants made valuable contributions to the dramatic industrial growth of America, such as Chinese workers helped build the Transcontinental Railroad. That was the railroad that went across the U.S. And Slavs, Italians, and Poles worked in the coal mines of the East. These are people in a coal mine right here. They're digging in a cave trying to find coal, and a mine is just somewhere where people are digging. They're trying to find coal. Could be gold. I mean, mine could be anything, but these people are looking for coal, which a lot of people use for railroads for their house. Coal was important back then. Immigrants worked in textile and steel mills in the Northeast, as well as the clothing industry in New York City. And immigrants worked unskilled labor for very low pay and endured dangerous working conditions to help build the nation's industrial strength. These are some examples of the dangerous jobs that immigrants worked. Children were often employed inside factories because they had small hands and they can put their hands in these machines. However, sometimes things would close, things would get shut. It wasn't uncommon for people to lose fingers, lose hands in these jobs. Working in a mine, which this person's doing, digging for coal, very dangerous. Sometimes these mines would collapse, the walls would start to fall down. But breathing coal is also bad for you. You can't do it for that long. It starts to affect your breathing. And this person's doing construction, but as you can tell, there's no rope. He doesn't have a helmet. Sometimes people would fall off and die. Sometimes things would fall and hit people in the head. And it's not like today where there was helmets. A lot of immigrants, back then, the jobs are dangerous. They weren't provided helmets. And immigrants from Europe entered America through Ellis Island in New York Harbor. And their first view of America was often the Statue of Liberty from Ellis Island. So that's the first thing people would see, is usually the Statue of Liberty. And it became known as a symbol of freedom. This is the Statue of Liberty right here. And that was usually the first thing immigrants saw when they came. And immigration was a lot different back then. All you had to do was go to this place right here called Ellis Island. So you'd go on a boat. It would take you to Ellis Island. And you can come to the U.S. nobody was denied entry into the U.S. As long as you came here, you were allowed to come, it's a lot different than today. A lot less people are able to come. But this is Ellis Island right here. That's your first stop, the place you would come when you came to America. You'd give them your info, and then you'd be able to go ashore. This is the Statue of Liberty in the back, what people would see. And immigrants began the process of assimilation, learning a new culture, into what was termed the American melting pot, a place where there is many cultures and ethnicities while settling in ethnic neighborhoods and growing cities. So melting pot, you think of Falls Church as a melting pot. It's just a place where there's many cultures and ethnicities. Falls Church, there's white people that live here. There's Vietnamese. We got people from Afghanistan, Ethiopia, El Salvador, Honduras, Bolivia, Peru. There's lots of people from different cultures that live here. And cities were beginning to grow during this time, and people lived in ethnic neighborhoods. And that's just a neighborhood where a lot of people from one cultural ethnic group live. You could almost think of Colmore like that. A lot of Hispanic people live in Colmore. That would be ethnic neighborhood. And immigrants and their children worked hard to learn English, American customs, and to become American citizens. And public schools served as an essential role in assimilating immigrants to America. So, still kind of like that today. You guys are here learning English, and you're kind of learning about U.S. customs from the public schools. Fortunately, immigrants were exploited by urban political machines that provided useful services in exchange for immigration votes. And this increased animosity, which is hatred towards them. So there was these political machines where they're just groups that would help immigrants out, but in return, immigrants would vote for them in elections. And although immigrants made valuable contributions to building America, they often faced hardship and hostility. And fear and resentment was based on the idea that immigrants would take jobs for lower pay than American workers would accept. So maybe there's an American worker who's making $10 an hour. They were afraid that an immigrant would take their job because maybe they'll work for $7 an hour. And prejudice, racism, was also based on religious and cultural differences. So we talked about the religion. Even though they were both Christian, the new immigrants tended to be Catholic, whereas the old immigrants tended to be Protestant. But there's also cultural differences as well. It could just be language, certain customs. However, it did create racism. And these are some examples of the racism that they had. Here's help wanted. These people are looking for, they need someone to work for their company, but they're saying no Irish. No dogs and Chinese allowed. This right here says no Italians allowed. It's about, it's saying that Italians are not allowed to work contracts in a certain city. And this one, it's a help wanted sign. It's asking for a barber, which is someone who cuts hair. But if you go right here, you notice it says no German need apply. So they don't want German people working for them. And resentment led Congress to limit immigration through the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and the Emergency Quota Act of 1921. These laws effectively cut off most immigration to America for the next several decades. So I told you before, the immigration used to be open. You just came to the U.S. and you were free to come here. However, a lot of that has changed now. And these are the first two acts which did that. Remember, an act is a law. So the Chinese Exclusion Act banned Chinese from entering the country. So there was a period of time where Chinese were not allowed in America. Doesn't matter what, if you were Chinese, you were not allowed here. If Chinese were already in the country, they were not allowed to become citizens. And the other law that was passed is the Emergency Quota Act in 1921. And it started limiting how many immigrants were allowed in the United States, and also gave a quota, which is a limit, on how many people were allowed from each country. This law greatly reduced the amount of immigrants from Eastern and Southern Europe. So remember, this is where the new immigrants are from, but now a lot less are able to come. This picture shows the Emergency Quota Act. It's a political cartoon because there's a lot of people trying to come in. However, the United States only allows, it has a limit. It says 3%, so only 3% of the immigrants are allowed in. That's it for immigration. If you guys have any questions, let me know.